Hello and welcome to another episode of Gen Z Talk, MCA TV's nostalgia-based program for all you kids of the 2000s. I'm your host, Nate Dax. Sitting with me now is my good friend and fellow Slippery Rock alumni, Zachary Kolsar.
Hi.
How are you, Zach?
Good, how are you doing, Nate?
Great. So just to dive right in, summer, it's right around the corner, and I felt like now is a better time than ever to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
So just to start, let me ask, what is the first thing that comes to your mind when you think about, summer, like from your childhood?
From my childhood? So my summers were pretty cool, actually. I'm gonna dive in a little bit. When I thought of it is my family had a camp at Vacation Land Campground. And every summer I just thought about going up there and be by a pool, go swimming, having some ice cream, playing basketball, just riding bikes, as being like a normal kid. But the thing that was abnormal about it was that was my vacation for like 8 weeks. I would me and my mom was a stay-at-home mom at the time, so me and her would spend 8 weeks. Like basically my whole summer vacation would be up there, and I would have like a whole different set of friends up there than what I had at home, which I thought was awesome. Like growing up, I was like, dude, like this is great. I hit a certain age where I was like 10 or 11, and my parents would be like, yo, like you just have to come back for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then you can just come kind of go. Because like it was a campground, like you knew everybody. It was kind of like almost like if you lived in a cul-de-sac, like you could just go out and be there all day.
Right.
And not have to worry about what time you have to be home.
I can personally relate to that because I do live in a cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
So
to me, like that was the bulk of my summer, and like my grandparents camped like right across the way. It really wasn't camping; it was more like glamping because we had like park model trailers and golf carts. So it was a little bit more glamping style, but I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. Growing up.
It does sound fun. I mean, I never really had anything like that growing up, but staying on the topic, I guess. Of course, there's summer camps, right? Were you ever involved with any of those growing up?
No, because again, like my parents bought this trailer when I was like 2 or 3, and my mom had been going there since she was a kid. So I didn't have like this traditional summer camp experience with like a camp counselor and all that. I just like my summers was going up to camp. I'd pick up different sports when I was there. I really got into basketball when I was like 9 or 10 because I saw like these older guys playing, and I was like, that's what I want to do. And I would practice like all the time up there, like during the weekdays when no one was really around and it was quiet. Like I'd just go up and hoop like all the time.
Nice. For me though, I mean, I was involved with a lot of summer camps growing up.
Yeah.
One specifically, and you wouldn't know this, but for you Moon residents at home, you would know St. Philip's Church. It's like right up the street from here. They have a week-long summer camp every year for elementary school kids called Kids Camp, where the kids is the kids ends with a Z and the camp starts with a K. Right?
Yeah.
So they offer that for kids who are in kindergarten all the way up to 5th grade. And I was involved with that every year. And I actually have, just to give an example here, I have a couple of shirts from those years. So this is from 2007, if you want to get a close-up on that. Yeah, okay, 2007, yeah. I used to wear shirts that size.
That's great.
Yeah, there's that one. And then I also have 2008 as well. Unfortunately, the very first year, 2006, I was unable to find that one.
Yeah.
But I do have the name tag that I wore that year. I still have it, which is crazy. But yeah, like you'll see it's shaped like a train because the whole theme that year was like that was the whole theme that year. Like I remember we all had like train conductor hats that we would wear as well with our shirts. But yeah, and like the first like 4 years, it was just like we would just like have like activities at the church every day, like little games or like skits and stuff. But the last 3 years, we would go away for like an overnight trip.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of Raccoon Park?
I've not. No.
Okay, yeah, I think one of the years was there, and then I think another year it was at a different campsite that had like a water park and like a rock climbing wall, and that was pretty much the first time that I ever like went away from home without my parents' like supervision, right?
Yeah.
So that was obviously new to me, but it was a lot of fun. You know, we'd be in these little like cabins. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. You know, no doubt about it. But moving on, let me just ask this. What would you say? Would you say there's anything about like? Would you say there's anything that kids today have like that we didn't have growing up? Like,
I would say the biggest thing is like, so I didn't have a phone in my hand until I was like 10 or 11. And it
Right.
wasn't like a smartphone or nothing. It was just a simple like blue slide phone that would like, you could just do a quick text or like a call or whatever. And that was it. And it was more of just like, my parents were like, yo, like, oh, we just want you to check in when you're out with your friends up at camp. And I said, okay, cool. Like that makes sense. I think nowadays, like a lot of kids, I even see it with like my younger cousin who's like 7 or 8. Like he'll like get on his mom's phone and like they'll watch a video or whatever. And that's just like, you know, I don't make a big deal of it because I'm like, you know, that's just what society is now. Like I feel like screens have taken, especially cell phones and smartphones is something that's way more available to kids nowadays that I really wouldn't thought of till I was probably in my late teens. And it's just like, I don't know. I feel like in some ways it kind of, I don't want to say robs them of their childhood, but they don't get the same experiences or as many as the same experiences that we would have like growing up in like the early 2000s, you know?
that's definitely true. I mean, I didn't get my first phone until I was 12.
Yeah.
But even like, you know, as a kid, you know, when I would go to these summer camps, one thing that I was thinking about when I was like preparing like for this episode was, you know, when we would go to these like camps, you know, your parents, they really didn't know like what was going on when you were there. I mean, maybe like you would tell them, but I feel like nowadays you have social media, and so like whoever's like holding these camps, they're posting pictures of what's going on, right? And so they can see what you're doing, they can see, you know, like they can see what's up.
Yeah.
I feel like back when we were kids, you know, that didn't exist, right? Social media wasn't really what it is today, where you could do that. Like maybe at the end of each week, when I was at kids camp, I'd get a little group picture that they would take, right? But that was it.
Yeah.
So I feel like, in a way, maybe like in this case, it might be, I guess it depends on who you ask, but
Yeah.
maybe in this case, you could say that it's better that like social media exists now. But at the same time, I also kind of liked the mystery of like being able to like only you to know like what you did, right?
Yeah. But like social media though is just a snapshot of what we want to show people. So like, yeah, they'll like the camps will probably do like a big like, oh, like today we went roller skating, and they'll post that. But like you don't catch like every little interaction that a kid has while they're roller skating with just like social media. So I guess what I'm saying is like as long as the kids today like are not just staring at like a phone all day, or like, you know, they're at least going out and doing activities. Like to me, like social media really doesn't play a big difference in that. I wouldn't have like even thought of that. I just think of like maybe kids today are not as active or don't have to be as active because they can be entertained by their phone or like a gaming system. And I mean, like I grew up with a PlayStation 2 in my house, so like I played video games. I played video games.
Of course.
But like I always like my family always told me there's like a balance, you know. Like if it's a nice day out, we'd rather you go outside than, you know, sit in front of a TV all day. But did I have days where I played video games most of the day because it rained? Yeah, you know.
Yeah. I mean,
You know, I guess that's the thing I'm trying to say is like, I feel like kids back then had a better sense of balance between the two. And today, I don't want to speak for every single kid out there, but I feel like a good portion of them lean more heavier to the screen time and less so much being outside.
Okay. Yeah, I can agree with that. Definitely. Now, let me ask something else. Would you say there's anything that's like specific to summer that doesn't really exist anymore from like when we were kids?
I have something that exists that doesn't really, like, kids today will never experience. And I'm gonna say it, and it's gonna sound silly, but do you remember the candy cigarettes?
Yeah.
Do you remember
yeah.
the candy cigarettes that they used to sell in stores before companies were like, hey, you know, we probably shouldn't be marketing this to kids?
Mhm.
I have a specific memory. Do you remember the song by Kid Rock, All Summer Long?
I feel like I do, yeah.
Yeah, it was like a big hit, like in the mid 2000s, and I was probably like probably like 5 or 6, and it was my friend's dad was driving us all around on his golf cart up at our camp, on vacation land, and we were singing All Summer Long while having candy cigarettes in our mouth, and we like, you know, like that memory just exists so well in my heart. And to me, that is one thing that like I associate with summer. Funny enough, is like a candy cigarette, or like, I'm trying to think what else. Remember water balloon fights?
Oh yeah, of course.
Like huge water balloon fights, you know, water guns. Did your family ever do like Christmas in July?
No, we didn't.
Oh,
But I remember like going to like the pool and stuff, and they would have like little. They would be celebrating it there. Like they'd have like a week where they would like do that.
yeah. So at Vacationland, our campground would do themes every weekend of the summer after Memorial Day. So I would always say Memorial Day was the start of summer, like the unofficial start of summer, because the pools would open. A theme would be each weekend, and one of the weekends in July was Christmas in July. And they would do a contest to see whose trailer or campsite would be the most decorated. So you would have like a whole trailer park just like decorating, like Christmas garland lights, you know, and I associate that too with summer. Like for me growing up, that's a little different. Like I don't really go up very much anymore, so, but I still associate like going fishing, having ice cream, you know, after a long day, like getting a bowl of ice cream.
Or hearing the ice cream man.
Yeah, hearing
know,
the ice cream
coming
man
by,
come down,
you know.
come down the street.
What was your go-to pick?
Oh, cookies and cream.
Really?
Cookies and cream on a waffle cone, peak ice cream. How about you?
Well, when the truck would come by, it would always be the SpongeBob.
Oh, those are
Popsicle.
good. Do you remember like the red, white, and blue popsicles?
The bomb pops.
The
yeah.
bomb pops,
Yeah.
yeah. Or
Um,
do you remember also like growing up the little thing, like the little bands you'd wear on your wrist, but they would have like different animals?
Silly bands.
Silly bands,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Silly bands.
Yes.
I think of that, like not even just a summer thing, but just like something I grew up with. And like they were the big rave when I was growing up.
I feel like if there's anything that I like specifically associate to summer that I feel like isn't as much around today as it was in the past is drive-ins.
Oh yeah.
Because again, you wouldn't know this, but if you're a Moon resident, you would know the Dependable Drive-In. That's like close by to
Yeah,
here-
yeah,
to
I've
here.
heard of it.
Yeah. But the one that I would always go to was in Robinson Township, and it was called the Twin Highway Drive-In.
Yeah.
Every summer, I would go there with my dad because he would always get these coupons in the mail. We can get like a large bucket of popcorn and 2 large fountain drinks, right?
Peak.
Like I remember going there and seeing Paranorman. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And the Diary of a Wimpy Kid movies.
Yeah, I remember those.
Yeah.
I'm gonna share an embarrassing thing. My first movie I ever saw in a movie theater was, do you remember the Bee Movie?
Yeah.
That was my
Yeah.
first movie I ever saw in a movie theater. And I dragged my dad to go see it. I was like, Dad, we gotta go see this movie. It's gonna be amazing. And me and my dad were watching it. We're like, what are we watching? Like, it was just like
I
ridiculous.
saw that in theaters.
Yeah.
Or, like not at a drive-in, but like just a regular movie theater. But Twin Highway, that closed about 10 years ago now, which was a real a real shame.
Yeah.
Because I'd been going there, for so long, and a lot of people were disappointed because they ended up putting a Sheetz there in its place, which really wasn't even necessary.
Yeah.
Because there was already a gas station like right down the road.
Yeah.
But strangely enough, they actually left the snack bar. I was just there on my way home from work this morning, and I went to see it, and I mean it looks just like you'd expect it to. It's all graffiti. It's falling apart.
Yeah.
But I remember like going in there like when they were still open, and I remember like what it looked like on the inside. They had the popcorn machine and the soft drink machine. They had the little trays where you can buy like hot dogs and hamburgers. They had a Pac-Man machine in the corner.
Yeah.
And it's like it's so like eerie seeing it like in that state now.
Yeah.
Right?
It's just weird like watching time progress, and like as time goes on, like things just change like around you.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when I was up at my camp, like things changed as I got older. They used to have like a really nice putt-putt course, but the people that owned it really didn't take good care of it, and you just watched it slowly decay, and now it's like it's not even worth playing, and it's in some ways it is sad because you see like something of your childhood or something you grew up with that's no longer around, and no one else is really going to experience, or it's not going to be the same experience for the next generation of people. So in a lot of ways it is kind of sad.
Yeah. Even like one of the screens like is still up.
Yeah.
They never cared to like tear it down. And there's like a big tree growing in front of it now.
Yeah.
And it's like, you could still tell like where the parking lot was, where you would park your car to like watch the movie.
The one thing I do regret from college was never going to that
I know, I was about to say
Starlight
that.
Drive-In up there by Slippery Rock. I
Yeah.
know between Butler and Slippery Rock off 19 there. I've always wanted to go, and it just never materialized.
I went by there all the time, when I'd go out to Butler to like go to Walmart or whatever.
Yeah.
And it would always interest me, but I guess just not enough.
Yeah. Or it's just like, you're with your friends and you pitch the idea to them and they're just like, oh, maybe we'll do this instead. And you go do that instead, and you guys never get around to it. So maybe that's on the bucket list of things we need to do at some point.
Definitely.
Got it.
I feel like you could say that for a lot of things though. Like, oh, let's do this. And then you never do. Like, those Instagram reels, right? Like things like from the 2000s, if you were a kid in the 2000s.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I feel like the ones that always get me are the ones where like they'll say one day you were outside with your friends for the last time and you didn't even know it.
Yeah. With like certain friends, yeah. Like
Yeah.
you didn't know it. Like again, like I had two sets of friends growing up. I had my friends I made through school in my neighborhood that I would see like the majority of the time, and then 3 or 4 months of the year I would see my friends up at Vacation Land Campground. And as time goes on, you get older, and those friends that you see all the time up at camp, you see them less and less. And eventually, like, they're married and they moved on, and I'm no longer there. I moved to Maryland, and then I came back. So it is kind of like sad, and like, there's some of those friends that I haven't even talked to since the last time I saw them was I was probably like 16 or 17 years old. So
Yeah,
it's wild to think about.
it is.
Funny enough, I had my first couple relationships like dating someone up at that campground. I haven't seen them, haven't talked to them since I've been there. So it's just a wild thing.
Something else that I just thought about, and you can tell me if you ever went anywhere like this, but did you ever go to any water parks?
Yeah, we went to like Soak Zone in Idlewild.
Okay.
We did that. Every once in a while we would get to the beach. I think that was a big thing for like my family, is like every once in a while we would plan like a beach vacation. The one year we went down to Florida, I went to Disney World for the first time when I was 11 and was like, I think I'd rather be at the beach. It's kind of hot.
Really?
It was the middle of July. like I wasn't like necessarily a little kid anymore. Like I was middle school age. And to me, I was like, dude, it's like 90 degrees. The rides weren't as like, exciting to me. And I enjoyed it, don't get me wrong. But at the time, I was like, dude, I told my parents, I was like, let's go back to the beach. I'd rather be there,
Mhm. Yeah, that's another thing. Kennywood, I used to go there every year with my parents.
Too,
And then that kind of stopped probably like after middle school.
Mm-hmm.
And I do miss that a lot. I miss, especially like when, they announced that they're closing, like one of the rides that I went on when I was a kid, like the Log Jammer.
Oh, man, I forgot about the Log
Yeah,
Jammer.
yeah.
Oh.
Or what else? Oh yeah, the Pitfall.
Mhm.
I never went on that, but I remember seeing it, and it always looked so scary.
Yeah.
Right.
I remember, so in high school, I was in the band. I was in the, marching band and stuff, and I played trombone. And it was before school would start, we'd go to Kennywood, we would ride the rides all day, and then we would have the parade later that evening, like they had for like all the high schools and stuff were there. And that was kind of like the last little bit of summer that I would have before school would start in high school, But to me, like summer really didn't end when school started. Summer break ended,
Right.
but like I would still be going up to Vacation Land till like after Labor Day. So like to me, summer ends like after Labor Day. Like to me, that's like the
Yeah.
official end of like summer.
I feel like that's how most people, see it. That's how I've always seen it.
Yeah.
But yeah, moving on. Would you say that there's anything else that like we had, like specific to us, like kids of the 2000s, that no other like generation before or after had?
I would say just parents that were a lot more like at a certain age, just let the kids be kids and just go out and explore and do things. Now, like again, I don't want to speak for everyone, but it seems like as I've gotten older, I've seen parents become a little bit more protective, because like things have going on in the world, and they just want to know, like, be more in touch with their kids' lives, which is nothing wrong with that. It's good parenting.
Yeah, of course.
But there is like, again, like a balance and just like the experience of like, hey, you can go out, just make sure you're back before it's dark. Like that experience of just like going out, like just exploring, doing stuff on your own, having a lot more like sense of, like you're more independent to like go out on a hike where you're not supposed to go, and you catch poison ivy and you come back home and your mom's like, what the heck were you doing? Like, why do you have poison ivy? I told you not to go there. Why didn't you listen to me? Like that kind of like experience of like
that's going back.
Or like I don't know about you, but when I was in trouble, my full name is Zachary. If I got Zachary, I knew I was in trouble instantly. And if I got Zachary Allen Colasar, forget about it. Like I was cooked. I was going to be probably grounded for like a week or something. Like I was in trouble. I was in the doghouse. But just like that little bit of like, I guess the sense of adventure is the big thing. Like, every day I woke up when it was summer break, I was like, dude, every day is an adventure. Like, I could go to the pool. I could go play basketball. I also really got into running. Because like I was still like in middle school, I was still trying to figure out like what sports did I want to try. And my dad one day is like, you're tall and lanky, why don't you try running? And I said, okay. I started running up at camp, and there was one little section that was about a mile long, like a mile loop. And I did that. And I did that for the first time. And I ran a mile and I was like I was out of breath. I was like I did in the middle of the day. It was like 90 degrees out. It was like the worst time to do it. But like that summer I got slowly better, and then I did cross country 7th grade. So that was kind of like my intro. So just a sense, I think, of adventure.
Yeah, I mean, that reminds me of how like my house is right in front of the woods.
Mm-hmm.
So I could go in there and I would know like where everything was. Like I would know I would know how to get to the creek.
Mm-hmm.
Which you had to really like go down to get there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that I remember like having friends over and going in there with them.
Yeah.
And it's just like you said, it was always a new adventure every time you'd go in there. And maybe sometimes, it didn't end in the best way.
Yeah.
Like I remember specifically one instance when I was in there with a friend of mine and his parents showed up to pick him up while we were still in there. And so my dad, he goes in there looking for us and he can't find us. And then eventually, like when we do get out, right, they're all frantic, they're like, where were you? Like, where did you go?
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, I still have, kids in my neighborhood today, kids who were like the same age that I was when I was doing that. And I don't think I've ever seen any of them go in there at all. Yeah. So it is true when you say that, like, kids today, they definitely have less of a sense for that kind of stuff, right? Like they'd rather just, talk to their friends on Xbox Live or play on their iPads.
Yeah.
I mean, I do have like a basketball hoop in my cul-de-sac, and there are kids who play, who play on that.
Mm-hmm.
They'll come outside and they'll shoot hoops. But I feel like, if we're talking like going on an actual like adventure where you're all alone with no parents and you're doing like whatever you want, essentially.
Yeah.
That's definitely something that has started to fade.
Yeah. Another thing I associate with my summers is campfires.
Right. Oh yeah, of course.
Like roasting marshmallows over a campfire, getting distracted and letting the marshmallow accidentally hit your calf, and now you got a little burn on there, and your parents are like, "What did you do?" Like, but
I mean, for a while we used to have these block parties for the 4th of July in my neighborhood, and I remember like they would have bonfires at those. And I would always stick my marshmallows directly into the flames until they caught fire.
Yep.
And my mom would tell me, "You can't eat them like that. You're gonna, you're gonna get sick."
No, she doesn't know what you're talking about, because that's how I ate them, and I would always like blow them out like a birthday candle, and then they were delicious. They were.
Yeah,
like,
they were.
They were good.
But I feel like I've learned since then not to do that.
Oh, I still do that. Some of us don't learn. Some of us continue to make the same mistakes.
I guess we always will.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we have reached our limit for today. So
cool.
Zach, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Nate. I appreciate it.
So yeah, be sure to join us for the next episode, because as I've said before, I will be here, which means you need to be here. So until next time, I'm Nate Dax, and this has been Gen Z Talk.